Hi, I'm Michael McPadden from Tango's API team with another tutorial for Tango's Mobile Procurement REST API, also known as MobProc for short. In this video, I'll guide you through how to create and submit an order request to update the features for an existing service asset. This is also known by its transaction type code, update features. But before I jump into the specifics of an update features order, I just want to quickly review the 4 basic steps for creating any type of order request. Authentication is the verification that the user making the API call is actually who they claim to be. Please note that the users are authenticated with every API call. In this API, request headers are primarily used to refine context. Common examples are executing a transaction on behalf of another user, who is sometimes known as the quote-unquote actor, or using other certain headers to tag a single API call or a group of related calls with a unique identifier that they can use to easily locate these calls in the server activity log files. For a detailed overview of what headers are available and how they can be used, please check out our video library for the video entitled Request Headers. The request body, written in JSON, is the heart of our order request. It contains all of the data needed by the source system to process the order. In a minute, I'll show you how to assemble that JSON. And the final aspect of our order request is a Boolean that indicates whether you just want to confirm the order request or if you're submitting the request for processing. But let me explain the difference. Typically, you want to obtain a confirmation before submitting your order because, as we'll see, the order confirmation returns all of the IDs passed in via the request body JSON along with human-readable data that fully describes what was referenced by those IDs, such as device name, vendor, price, etc. This is all very useful to the API consumers who want to present this order request back to their end users so that they can verify it for accuracy. When an order is submitted, if successful, the API will return an HTTP status code of 200, along with various data describing the order details, including the newly assigned order number. If not successful, the error status code, along with error information, will be returned instead. Okay, now let me tell you what specific data elements must be included in our JSON request body when making this request. The transaction type, update features, indicates that you wish to add or remove one or more optional features from your existing service asset. The external order number is an order number or a tracking number or some other reference number generated by the carrier who provides the service. It's a helpful cross-reference back to the carrier's ordering system. The service ID identifies the specific asset that you wish to modify. The shopping cart contains an array of features that is populated with data identifying each addition and or removal that you wish to make to this service asset. And the properties block contains the order properties that are used by the carrier to process this order. Please note that the set of properties that are required for an update features can vary somewhat among the different carriers. For more information on that, please refer to the video entitled How to Obtain Order Properties. Okay, now let's go to our developer portal, and we'll just begin by going to our orders endpoint, clicking on the Post tab, and this will expand our panel. Click on the Try It link to open up our input form, and you'll see in our authentication, I already had pre-filled in my client ID. I'll check my scope, as well as enter my headers, identifying my tenant, and again, my client ID. Okay. Down here at our query parameters, I'm going to check the confirm box because I want to first get a confirmation to verify my order before we submit it. And then I will scroll down to our request body. You'll currently see that it's defaulted with a template for a new activation order. We will just clear that out and I will fill it in with my template for our update features. I'll first enter my external order number. I'm just going to enter in some random string. This would be a string provided by the carrier system to cross-reference back to their system. And for our transaction type, enter update features. And next I'll enter the service ID of the service that I'm wishing to modify. And then next you'll see, and this is the heart of this order, the shopping cart. And in here, we'll put any features, we'll identify the features that we want to change, either add or remove them. In this case, I'm going to add one feature. So I'll first put in that ID and the enumerated value add to add. And we would either be putting in add or remove, all capital letters, in here. And lastly, you might notice that I could also add a comment if I needed to attach a comment to this feature request that possibly might be needed by someone in the workflow to see why this request is being made. And lastly, we will put in our order properties. In this case, it requires contact number, which I already pre-filled, and our service number that I also pre-filled. And this is the service number for the service asset that we're currently modifying. Okay, we'll scroll down and we'll submit our order for confirmation. All right, we have our response. I will scroll down there to see this. So here we see our confirmation response. Notice how the IDs passed in the request body were used by the source system to look up the related details and return them back to us. An API consumer can use this response and present it back to their end user for them to verify. But specifically, let me point out just a few pieces of the data here. Notice that the entire response is wrapped in a block named order confirmation. This is how we can tell that we are in that mode and that we didn't submit the order. Next, you might notice that the source system was able to infer some valuable information from our login info, headers, and elements all within the request body. For example, we see the account holder, which contains the employee detail records for the logged in user, which is also the person for whom the order is being placed. We can also see the cost summary block, and this summarizes any one-time or recurring costs associated with these features that are being added. And below that, we will see our device. These are the details for the device associated with the service being modified. It may be helpful in giving the end user some additional context about the service being modified. They might be more familiar with the device rather than the service. But as with any data returned, if it's not useful, you can just simply ignore it. We also see our external order number, just passing back what we had passed in request. And then we see our order properties. In addition to the IDs and values that we supplied in our request body, notice that the response now includes the data type and human readable label as well. This label is helpful, again, not only for the API consumer, helping them better understand what these properties are in case the ID is a little cryptic, but it's also helpful if they, again, want to display this back to their end user for verification. And in the requested by, we happen to see that the information is the same as the account holder block. This is because I am placing the order on behalf of myself. However, if we had wanted to submit a request on behalf of a different employee, then we could use our context headers, namely the xtango context employee ID header or the xtango context company employee ID header, and populate it with this other user's ID. Then the account holder block would have contained a different employee's information, but the requested by block would have still contained my own information. To find another employee's ID number, you can use the /employees endpoint. Next, we see the service block. Here we see the details containing information describing our service asset. And below that is the shopping cart. This has all the details describing each of the features that we are adding or removing. These details can be very helpful, again, presenting back to our end user so that they can verify that they are actually making this request with doing the things that they truly intended to do. And finally, at the bottom, we'll see our transaction type, update features, along with the success status that this confirmation was successfully given to the backend system and returned to us. Next, we'll scroll back up, uncheck the confirm box, and resubmit our request. Now you'll notice that the response is similar, but there are a couple notable differences. First, the order ID has been inserted, and this identifier is very important to the end user since it is what they will use most often to locate details about their order or to look up status about a pending or processed order. Also, if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see the status is now set to order submitted. Another difference is the shopping cart block has now been changed to the order segments block. And this contains all the same information about the updated features plus some additional vendor details. So there you have it. We've successfully created an update features order request, confirmed the order, and successfully submitted it for processing. If the source system has a workflow attached to this type of order, then it might be forwarded to a manager's approval queue or some other step. Using the order ID returned in the response, we can then make the API call to orders/ID endpoint for all the order details and status of its current state. For greater detail about some of these areas that I discussed, I recommend watching a few of our other videos, including the ones for setting request headers and obtaining order properties. Each of these videos provides helpful explanations of how to complete these particular areas of the order request. I hope you found this video useful. For more information and tutorials on other topics, we recommend browsing the MobProc API video library at mobproc.tv and our documentation website at mobproc.info. That's all for now. Thanks for watching and have a great day.